ES6 introduced a new type of string called as a template string, and it's very useful in many occasions. Let's go and have a look at that by using another example. So I'm going to create a new file called ex03.js. Here is an example of a string. So I'll say let s1 equals to my name is Vinod. Note that I've used a single quotes here. I can also create a string using double quotes saying I live in Bangalore. So you cannot combine the single quotes and double quotes for a given string, which means you cannot open with a single quotes and end with a double quotes, but you can combine them. For example, I can say let s3 equals to, in double quotes I'm typing, this is a React JS, and note that React JS is in single quotes, training. Or I can also say let s4 equals to, in single quotes I can say that the training is available on, in double quotes I'll type here, Udemy platform. So you can combine single quotes and double quotes in this way, but you cannot open with a single quotes and end with a double quotes. But these are all ES5 or prior standards. But the new one is called template string, and the way you do it is by using something like this. The character you have to use is the backtick, and then you can type here whatever that you want. For example, I can say this is a new feature in ES6. Looks no different than the previous ones. They all work in the same style, but this is very powerful. At this time, there's no speciality of this particular S5. Let me type here console log S1 and then copy paste this few times. Make them S2, S3, S4 and S5. So save it and go back to the command prompt. Here is my new file ex03. I can simply type node ex03, press enter, and it's giving me the output as expected, right? So there's a single quotes here which is printed using a double quoted string. There are double quotes here which is printed using a single quoted text, and here is the new one which is actually a little different than the previous one. How is it different? So first, this allows multi-line text. For example, I can have here let s6 equals to, and I can have here something like this is a multi-line text also, and then I can type console log s6, save it, go back to the command prompt, run it once more, and you will see that I'm able to get a multi-lined text. Now if you try to do the same thing for any of these, for example, if I simply press enter over here, save it, note that Visual Studio itself is indicating that there is an error, but nonetheless let's go and try that over here by typing node ex03, and you see that it says that invalid or unexpected token because we have not completed the single quotes that we have opened. Now the way we would have done is by using a quotes and then a plus and then again coming back here opening one more quotes. So we have to take care of bringing it in the next line and so on, whereas with template string it is automatically taken care of. Now the template strings are called so because they can be used as a template for substitution of variables. For example, I can have here few variables. Let's say let name equals to Vinod, let email equals to vinod@vinod.co, and now I can combine them in a single string by typing let s7 equals to, using a backtick I'm going to type here email address of $name is $email. So this is the template, and we are substituting the value of an expression here which happens to be a variable, and that's actually Vinod. So that's going to say email address of Vinod is, and then it's going to get the value of this particular expression or value of this variable. So let's just try printing this S7 and go back, clear the screen and try once more, and you can see that it says email address of Vinod is vinod@vinod.co. Now as I mentioned that this is an expression here, not just a variable. You can literally give any expressions if you want. For example, I'm going to type here let age equals to 45. I can type let s8 equals to, using backtick I can now say here $name is And then I want to print here is an adult or is a minor based on the age. So I can use a dollar and a curly bracket expression, and I can type age less than 18 question mark. Now I can use an output string which is either in single quotes or double quotes. I can say a minor colon an adult. Save this and print this, and you should see it says Vinod is an adult. So that's taken care of. But in case if I give some age of, say, for example, 12, and if I try to run the same thing, it says that Vinod is a minor. Template strings can also be parsed using some user-defined functions. For this, let's take another example. So I'm going to select this folder, create a new file, ex04.js. I'm going to create a couple of variables. Let name equals to Vinod. Let age equals to 45. And then I'll type here, let S1 equals to, I'm going to use a backtick. And then I type here, dollar name is dollar age years old. So of course, if I output this by using a console log S1, we should now check by typing node ex04, and it says Vinod is 45 years old. But what if I want to print some other string based on the age of the person? Something like Vinod is a young person, Vinod is a middle-aged person, Vinod is an old person, etc. So obviously using a ternary expression here would be very difficult because we have multiple conditions. What I can do is I can supply this entire string to some other function and then parse that. These are called tagged template strings. And to use it, let's first define a function. So like this, let's call it as my tag. And then I'm going to use here return. This is a sample output. Of course, we would like to change that. And then I'm going to copy this line, paste it over here, make it as S2. But just before the starting of this backtick, I'm going to type here my tag. Note that I'm supplying the name of the function followed by a template string. And if I use console log S2, now we are not going to get Vinod is 45 years old, but instead we will be getting the return value of this function. So which is this one. This is a sample output. So I'm going to go and test the same thing. And you can see it says this is a sample output. But what happens is that this entire string here is now broken into smaller pieces and will be passed as arguments to this function. So the first argument here is called strings, which is an array of strings. That array is made up of pieces of strings like this. So this is the first part of the string, and then this is the second part of the string. So if you declare a variable here called strings or anything else, and then let's just do a console log here by typing strings, comma strings. So we would be seeing that it's an array of two strings consisting of this as the first part and this as the second part. So let's go test the same thing. And you can see that there is an empty string before that. That is something that starts from here till here itself. That's the empty string, first part, second part, and then the third part. So in case if something is there before this dollar name, that would have been the first part over here. So what about this dollar name and dollar age? So this dollar name will be passed as a second argument. Dollar age will be passed as the third argument. So if you want to receive that, you have two options. Number one, you declare a variable here called as P1 and then P2. So P1 will receive the value of this and P2 will receive the value of this. So if you want, you can print the same thing. You can say console log. You can say P1, P2. Save this and run the same. You can see P1 is Vinod, P2 is 45. If you want, you can type here P1 is P1, and then you can say here P2 is P2. So you will get the output as P1 is Vinod, P2 is 45. Now that I have this Vinod and 45 based on the value of P2, I can now actually generate a different output. A JavaScript function also defines a keyword called arguments, and we can use that also. For example, let's comment these two lines and then type here console.log arguments. Arguments is an object representing all the parameters that you have supplied. Since the function receives three parts here, one is the array of strings and then the values of each of these dollar expressions. So arguments will now display the same thing. So if I go back to the command prompt and print the same, you will see the first argument is an array of all the string parts, and the second one is the first expression, then the second expression's value, and so on. So you can actually say arguments of 0, arguments of 1, arguments of 2. The third technique for receiving all these dollar name, dollar age, etc. is by using a triple dot and then say values. We will be learning about this triple dot in the subsequent lessons, so hold on for that. But what happens is that values now represents an array of all other parameters that are supplied. So I can now type here console.log values, save this and go back. I should see an array of two values, Vinod and 45. So this is how you can use something called tagged template strings in ES6.